Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.
So, Brett, what's your view? Why do you think we're seeing so many AI IDEs springing up? Seems like every major tech vendor thinks they need a individual development environment.
They do. They desperately do need them. And I think, in a word, I would say jealousy. I think that there is, a lot tied up in how do you put this? The dominance that Microsoft has enjoyed for over a decade with GitHub and VS Code, and the ecosystem that lives around and literally lives on those tools, that drives so much in our industry. So I look around the marketplace and I think, okay, everyone who wanted to do AI, was trying to make models, and turns out you can only have so many frontier model makers. And I think everyone now wants to do AI dev because it's cheaper than building a model, and it perhaps drives just as much revenue, because what it does is it draws developers to your platform, your software, your viewpoint of the marketplace.
Definitely opportunistic, right? You want to capture the mind share, the time, the attention of the developer community, and GitHub's enjoyed their 150 million user base. Not that all of them use VS Code, but a lot of people do. It's certainly the dominant one
or
today.
Some derivation thereof.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Also, I mean, Microsoft made it relatively easy. You don't have to start from scratch, right? Because VS Code is open sourced, and not all of Microsoft's innovations, but you've got that to work with. People already know it and understand it. So it's a weird situation. I know you were comparing this to the browser wars, comparing but not comparing, because it's not the same thing.
They're very different. Yeah. I mean, it's the same idea. You build an ecosystem of value around this point of interaction. If it's a consumer looking for where to buy the cheapest gas, or it's a developer looking to build something a little bit faster, a little bit easier, those decisions are, entry points. It's like knocking on the front door of a house and looking in and going, yeah, I like the living room. I think I'll stay.
Great. He goes there, kitchen. All right, we're good to go. All right, what's some bedroom somewhere? We'll figure that out.
Right. I don't know what's happening in the basement. I don't want to know. Let's just stay on the first floor.
Yeah, hopefully,
but it's like you said with the browsers. It is a point of entry, and the browsers, as it turns out, are very difficult and expensive to make. And a lot of that is not just the engineering, but creating that exposure, acknowledgement, momentum in the marketplace. Remember the browser wars in the 90s?
Oh yeah. And that, and before that, it was the search engine in the browser wars. And you know what? Well, let's talk about some of them. I know you were just working with Project Bob. I'm sure you're not ready to give a full, evaluative readout, just working with it for a day or so. But what was your take on Project Bob?
Yeah, I didn't actually do any modernization of COBOL, but I do actually intend.
You've got laying around.
Right, I have so much. But I do honestly really want to try that use case, because it's one of the things that's unique about Bob, and I think it's one of the things that, when we talk about this Cambrian explosion of IDEs, you kind of have to think about, because what IBM is doing, and what some others are doing as well, is creating these sort of value propositions that are tied to a particular problem space, or market itself, or platform itself. And so for IBM, they actually, develop some operationalized, workflows and fine tunes of models that are specific to the problem of modernizing COBOL. Where else do you get that?
Yeah, they do probably have some hanging around as some of their customers do.
They might, and that's really it. It's like the same reason why the New York Times is suing everybody, and so it is, in this day and age, the agentic AI age. That unique content is worth quite a bit, and that IP that IBM has been building up over decade upon decade upon decade with COBOL expertise. That's your one-stop shop where to get it.
Very much so. The other one I didn't necessarily anticipate coming out with an IDE was Kira with AWS. And when you really step back and say, well, why would they do this? They really do want to capture the developer's attention, get the mind share. And I think if you can establish that as your sort of portal or window into all the services that can hang off of an IDE, it totally makes sense. I mean, AWS has been a little stingy with accounts. I don't know if you've played with it. I haven't had a chance. I've used the
I
others.
have, yeah.
You have? Okay.
I uninstalled it actually just the other day.
How
Not because
many
it
how
did
many
anything
IDEs
bad.
can you install, right? Is that
Well, right. That's just it. There's only so many Electron apps that a single laptop can run. That is what I have discovered.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
seriously, I did not install it because it did anything bad. It was just trying to keep my living room clean. And I felt like in using it and in using Bob in particular, they are very consistent. And if I had never used either of them, but I had used VS Code, the barrier of entry is almost nil. Either adopting either of them or moving from one to the other. It is that familiar.
Yeah. Well, especially that model, that's kind of, even if it's not VS Code based, it's still the same idea of how the UI is designed, very much so, because it is familiar to people. I mean, I've used Claude Code, I forgot what the name of the engine underneath it is that you use within VS Studio or VS Code.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, there's a name for it. I forget. But you download that separately, or you can do it in Anthropic's Claude. Do it there. It's also interesting that now, and once the IDEs started taking off, then or in parallel, CLIs become cool again, right?
Yeah.
And guess who?
Yeah.
Guess why? I bet every developer in the world says this is great, but I don't do everything in this interface. I still do a lot on the
Well,
command
I
line.
might have my favorite editor that is not VS Code.
No.
My Emacs needs some love, Mitch.
I thought you were going to go back to VI.
Yeah. Well, actually, yes. I'm a lazy Vim because it's had the funny Marine. This gun is unique and it is my own, et cetera, et cetera. I just want the same Neo Vim experience that everyone has.
There you go. I asked a really good friend of mine one time, why do you always type with your left hand kind of hanging off the top left of the keyboard? He goes, because I use VI. I have to hit escape all the time. Like,
he's still trying to exit.
Yeah. I don't know if he still does that today. But okay, I get it. I get that. But it's interesting, so much has got, even emulating a lot of what you can do or doing the same things you can do in the browser plugins of generating code. The other thing I wanted to talk about too is some opinionated IDEs. So what I mean by that is Project Bob, spec driven, right?
Yeah.
Or intent driven.
Oh, it's
and
both.
Then we have both. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kiro they call it spec driven.
Well, it's a literate coding is what IBM calls it, but it's a combination.
Yeah, and there's even, kind of going back to what's the playbook, right? Development playbook that you put together on a project. So let me run this theory by you. Here's my take on what's happening because things are happening so fast. We're seeing companies sort of walk up the value chain. Sometimes it's a walk up, back down, back up, of the value chain of the kind of tools that developers use, right? Starting with, you gave you a natural language interface. Then we give you some IDE capabilities. Then we add to that command line interfaces. Then we add more agent creation capabilities. Now we're adding more the things like AWS Agent HQ for managing and controlling, and it's not the only one, right? ServiceNow has theirs. That's the next battlefield, I think. So we're seeing everybody kind of walk up this value chain. And of course, along the way, all the vendors say, and we'll be compatible with everybody else, especially the models. Use your own models, I guess, except for if you're Anthropic or OpenAI, less so. We'll see. But it seems like that's what's happening. And I don't know where we'll kind of meet in the middle again, but I think it's that control plane of managing what we're creating in software when it comes to agents. So that's my hypothesis. You can tell me that's hooey, or you have a different one, or that some of that seems valid to you.
No, it is cyclical, or a wave form, whichever way you want to look at it.
Is this a sine wave?
Exactly. So I don't know if we're in the trough or at the peak. I don't know. But it does seem, if you think back in time and you think about if you're a Java developer, let's say, and, you're a NetBeans guy or you Eclipse guy, that's, you're kind of make an investment in knowledge, and that investment is tied to the software you use. It's just like the Adobe ecosystem. And what still powers that today is control and enclosure. And I feel like the industry right now is indeed walking up that stack, as you say, but at the same time, it's trying not to re-enter the Adobe mindset. So if I think about my own, dev tool chain, I want as much flexibility as possible. I want to invest in Vim motions, because I can use that anywhere. I can use that in the browser, for crying out loud, And I want to invest in some open models that are available, both hosted and local. I want to invest in a tool chain, the interface that I work with that can work on this. I want to be able to use Claude Code today and Gemini CLI tomorrow and Open Code the day after, and work on the same project across those. Because maybe if I'm doing something like building test cases, I want to use Open Code for that because I like the way that it does planning. But if I'm just trying to debug something, maybe Gemini CLI or probably Claude Code or Claude CLI is the best for that. So I feel like we're going up the stack, but at the same time, we have a lot more optionality for what we, the investments that we make in knowledge to use those tools.
Maybe it's a spiral staircase that we're going up. We're circling while
it's a stairway to heaven.
Stairway to heaven. There you go. There's a guitar solo you're not supposed to play in the guitar solo. Anyway, well, good. Any other thoughts on this? Because we'll go to our last segment. We're going to introduce a new segment coming up. Anything else you wanted to say, Brad?
Yeah, just that, if you guys that are listening to this are, interested in trying out, these agentic IDEs, I would encourage you to pick up some of the, the full spectrum. So start with the CLI tools, add in the IDEs, the agentic IDEs, and go for the completely code-free. And I'm not going to say N8N because I just no. But there are a lot of interesting tools coming out, like Google's DeepMind Opal, as an example, that you can build workflows with that will generate the lovely TypeScript that you can then work on. So there's like a full spectrum of tooling available that use the same models and build the same artifacts that can match both the problem you're trying to solve, maybe, or the project you're working on, or just your mood for the day.
Good, great. So let's introduce our next segment. We have a little new intro video for this. So guess what time it is? It's time for the drop.
Okay, it's time for the drop.
I didn't bring a microphone. Wait, drop microphone.
Mic drop. That would be another kind of drop. Okay. All right. So we have a little fun. We liked our intro, so we made another little video clip there to use. So the drop is our last segment that we're going to do probably most podcast episodes, kind of what's on your mind. Since kind of you were wrapping things up there, one of the things that is on my mind that I'm working on is kind of finishing up the work I've got for the end of the year, right? Because we got just a few more full weeks of work. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with this is I actually wanted to pick your brain to steal it because I'm your ideas and combine them with mine and put it into an analyst insight report. So I have to credit you now, which is no problem at all. So this is definitely on my mind, is where is this going? And I know that developers will choose the tool that both fits the environment they're in, but it's going to also be the work and the workflow and the experience that they feel is most productive. I think it's appropriately so a choosy bunch, because you're not writing just code. You're doing a lot of other things in your IDE. And so we do more agent things and control planes and guardrails and all of that. That's where we're headed. So we'll see what the shakeout is. How about you? What's on your mind, Brad?
Yeah, we talked about it just briefly a minute ago, and that whole literate programming thing, because one thing I've really kind of learned the hard way in managing a number of projects that are agentic in the nature is remembering what the heck is going on in there. And when I think, because I used to do a ton more work in Jupyter Lab notebooks, and that is the definition of literate programming, wherein you are coding and documenting as you go. And I've really tried to sort of document each session to sometimes, like with open code, for instance, you can save a session, or you can even share a session, terrifyingly so, with other people. Fortunately, you can as a hosted server, so you can just give somebody a URL and they can see your session. But you can kill that, fortunately. But anyway, I'm trying to, once you get to as a single human being, working on a project that isn't, very small, that grows over time or is multiple projects, being able to sort of maintain state, if you will, is, I think, harder in an agentic world than it was in the previous world that we lived in. And I appreciated Jupyter Notebooks because it kind of, was a part of what you were doing. So I've found myself trying to think about how I can force the agentic experience into better documenting, doing more literate programming with what I'm doing, not just writing better comments in the code, but actually, documenting what the project is, how it works, and how it evolves over time.
Really, something I hadn't thought about this way before in what you just said. That was, we're managing two memories, our own and the memory state of whatever sessions we have working with AI. Sometimes getting those to line up, okay, what did we do? Do you recall that? Is that still in your memory buffer, and is your memory is that large enough, or how do you persist that, all that? So anyway, lots of good stuff. We have plenty of things to talk about, no doubt. Hey, we have a real official email address, Brad. It's agentsofdev@futurumgroup.com. So send ideas, comments. What do you like, not like? We'd love to hear from you. We're both available on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way to find us. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, everybody, we'd love to hear what you would like Mitch and I to talk about. We have a lot of varied interests that we're quite willing to dig into. So
whether we're qualified or
guys.
not, we'll dig into it.
Right.
And we'll have fun doing it, whatever it is. So
Indeed.
No, we definitely love to hear ideas of what you want us to talk about, and might even spur some kind of new research areas that we look at too. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Corey,
Mitch.
on the back end, our producer, for helping us make this happen. We'll see you on the next episode of Agents of Dev.
Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.